When disaster strikes or society breaks down, there's one critical truth to remember. Fairness takes a backseat to survival. This video will explore the mindset and tactics necessary to endure when the world as we know it crumbles. Whether it's a natural calamity, an economic collapse, or other catastrophic events, being prepared isn't just about stockpiling supplies. It's also about cultivating the skills, knowledge, and resilience to adapt to unpredictable situations. When everything is on the line, survival often depends on quick thinking, decisive action, and the ability to prioritize. Join us as we discuss practical strategies and survival essentials to ensure you can protect yourself and your loved ones when it matters most. Remember, fair doesn't matter when survival is at stake. It's time to shift your perspective and fortify your preparedness for the challenges ahead. 1. Survival over fairness. When SHTF, fairness is a luxury you can't afford. Catastrophic events strip away the polite rules of society and replace them with one stark reality. Survival is all that matters. It doesn't matter who is right or wrong, who deserved what, or what the fair thing to do might be. When push comes to shove, the decisions you make will revolve around staying alive, not being nice. You must detach yourself from emotional impulses or the wish for things to be different. Tough choices will arise, and you'll find that morality is a concept that won't feed you, protect you, or keep you warm at night. For example, if supplies are running low, do you share equally with everyone around you, even if it jeopardizes your own survival? Or do you prioritize yourself and your immediate family? The pragmatic choice is clear, even if it feels harsh or selfish. Fairness doesn't factor into it when resources are scarce and survival is on the line. Wishful thinking can kill you. You can't afford to act based on what you think the world should be. You have to react to the brutal reality of what it is. Someone begging for help might turn around and stab you in the back for your resources. The moral or fair response can put you at risk. Compassion and sympathy might lead you to make reckless decisions that leave you vulnerable. You have to learn to prioritize logic over emotions, and sometimes that means making choices that would have been unthinkable in normal times. Survival is inherently unfair. It's brutal and raw, and it favors those who act quickly, think pragmatically, and aren't bogged down by outdated notions of fairness in impossible situations. When SHTF, only one thing matters: making it through alive. Fairness won't save you, but calculated, ruthless decision-making will. Don't confuse survival with equality or justice. They simply don't coexist in life or death scenarios. 2. Motivations to 200. Hard choices in survival. When SHTF, the rules of everyday life no longer apply, and survival becomes a cutthroat race. One of the harshest realities you'll face is that survival isn't fair, and it doesn't have to be. People often cling to notions of morality and fairness, but in a life or meth scenario, those principles can cost you everything. Hard decisions are your new normal here, and they aren't just difficult, they're gut-wrenching. You will encounter situations where you can't save everyone. It's impossible to stretch already limited resources to cover every single person, no matter how much you wish you could. Will you give food and water to a stranger who might be useful later, or to a friend who has no skills but a lifetime of loyalty? Will you allow weakened members of your group to drain your supplies, knowing it jeopardizes your entire community's survival? These choices strip away idealism and force you to confront reality. The truth is cold and unforgiving. Acting out of emotional guilt could lead to the downfall of your entire group. What makes survival decisions especially brutal is prioritizing the long game. It's not just about staying alive today, it's about ensuring there's a tomorrow. That might mean turning away people who have nothing to contribute, or cutting ties with someone who can't pull their weight. These aren't heartless actions, they're calculated moves to preserve life in the harshest of conditions. Remember, when resources run out, no one survives. Not even the people you try to save out of fairness. Understand this now. Being a leader, or even just a member of a survival group, means making tough calls. While others hesitate or collapse under emotional strain, you'll need to stand firm, knowing it's better to make an unpopular decision than to risk everyone's lives. Fairness flies out the window when spilling blood is the only thing that matters is staying alive. And for that, hard choices are inevitable. Survival demands a clear head and a sharp knife, both figuratively and literally. Required skills, trust, and compatibility. When the SHTF, survival is not about fairness, it's about who can contribute and who cannot. Building a survival group demands more than just good intentions or sympathy for someone's situation. It requires a group of people who offer value and won't jeopardize the safety or cohesion of the team. The first priority when forming a group should be skills. You need individuals who can do what it takes to survive. This includes, but isn't limited to, hunting, fishing, shelter construction, medical knowledge, and security. Every person in the group should bring a critical ability to the table. If someone can't contribute in a tangible way, they're dead weight. Trust is non-negotiable. Out in the wild or hunkered down in a crisis, you can't afford to second-guess whether someone in your group has your back or a knife at it. People who have a history of betrayal, manipulation, or selfishness are a threat. One weak link can destroy an entire chain. The same is true for survival groups. If you can't trust someone completely, they're a liability, and liabilities will get you killed. Finally, compatibility is essential, but often overlooked. The reality is, tensions will run high in any survival situation. Stress, fear, and scarcity of resources can easily lead to tempers flaring. If your group is full of people who can't cooperate, can't resolve disputes, or simply don't get along, you're looking at chaos instead of survival. You need people who can work together calmly, even when everything around them is falling apart. Compatibility doesn't mean everyone has to be best friends, but the group must function as a cohesive unit, capable of setting differences aside to focus on staying alive. Feeling sorry for someone or believing in fairness won't save lives. If someone lacks skills, trust, or compatibility, their place in the group should be reconsidered. Survival is about pragmatism, not emotions. Establish clear expectations and hard limits. Compassion has its place, but when SHTF, it's survival that matters, not fairness. 4. Emotional dilemmas with loved ones. When SHTF, one of the hardest things to confront will be the emotional struggles tied to making decisions about family and friends. It's a harsh reality, but survival doesn't care about your feelings or what seems fair. The emotional guilt of having to say no, or worse, turning away loved ones, is a burden that many will not be prepared to handle. You might have supplies, a safe location, and a plan, but what happens when an unprepared relative shows up at your door begging for help? Suddenly, it's not just about logistics, but emotions. And these moments will define how you survive. Or don't. The fact is, helping loved ones can quickly compromise both your safety and the survival of your group. Resources like food, water, and medical supplies are finite and carefully calculated. Adding another person into the mix who didn't prepare doesn't just strain those supplies, it may derail your entire plan. People think they'll just make it work, but guess what? That's not how survival works. If you act based purely on guilt or emotional attachment, you're putting everyone at risk. Yourself, your group, and ironically, even the person you're trying to help. It's a lose-lose. These scenarios get even more complicated when loved ones bring additional vulnerability or baggage. Maybe they're injured, sick, or have dependents like children who require even more care. Are you really prepared to sacrifice the hard work and preparation that went into securing your survival for someone else's poor planning? It sounds cruel, but the time to think about these situations is now, not when you're emotionally compromised in the moment. The truth is, there's no easy solution to these dilemmas. Having clear, established boundaries ahead of time helps. Whether it's a firm no policy for outsiders or a contingency for limited family support. But prepare yourself. When SHTF, emotions will try to override logic, you'll need to stick to your decisions like your life depends on it, because it does. Survival has no room for sentimentality, and fair doesn't matter when the stakes are this high. 5. Trust as a survival currency. When the chips are down and chaos reigns, trust is more valuable than gold. Forget your stockpile of supplies or the weapons you've managed to collect. If you can't trust the people around you, your chances of survival plummet. Trust isn't just a feel-good virtue in a survival situation. It's currency. It determines whether your group holds together or falls apart in the face of adversity. Here's the harsh truth. If there's even a whiff of deception or disloyalty, it can poison the entire group. Theft, betrayal, or selfish behavior places lives at risk, often leading to division or even violence. If someone is caught stealing food or withholding supplies intentionally, that's not just a personal failing, it's an attack on the group's survival. Such actions create distrust, which in a life-or-death situation is as corrosive as disease. This is why leaders in these scenarios cannot afford to tolerate breaches of trust. You deal with them swiftly and decisively. There's no room for gray areas or feelings. Whether it's exile or something harsher, Those who endanger the group's cohesion must face the consequences. The survival of the majority always outweighs the emotions tied to one individual. This might sound cold, but it's reality. Survival doesn't care about fairness. It's about making the hard calls. Trust also ensures efficiency. When there's a task to divide or a plan underway, you need people to follow through without constantly looking over their shoulders. Wasting energy on second-guessing every move erodes the group's ability to respond to threats and challenges. Unified trust makes your group a cohesive unit instead of a fractured liability. Remember this: when survival is the priority, trust is non-negotiable. There's no place for ongoing skepticism or manipulative games. If someone can't act in the group's best interest, they're a liability. And liabilities, no matter how small, can quickly become fatal. 6. Leadership and survival scenarios. When SHTF, leadership will determine who survives and who doesn't. Without a clear leader, chaos takes over, and chaos gets people killed. A strong leader steps in to make the decisions no one else has the guts to make. This is not about being nice or fair. It's about keeping people alive. Leaders will have to assign roles, enforce discipline, and make tough calls that won't always please everyone. Guess what? That's not their job. Their job is survival, plain and simple. Good leadership also means keeping order in a group. Without it, you'll have disputes, power struggles, and wasted energy, all things that could spell disaster in a survival situation. Leaders don't need to be everyone's friend. They need to maintain control. This involves standing firm on decisions, even when they're unpopular. Survival isn't a democracy, and there's no time for endless debates. Leaders must act decisively and expect compliance. Yet, effective leaders also know when to listen. They assess the strengths and weaknesses of their group and delegate responsibilities accordingly. A good leader isn't necessarily the loudest or the strongest. They're the one who keeps the group functioning. Respect doesn't come from titles. It's earned through actions. People will respect a leader who holds their own in a crisis, solves problems, and prioritizes the group's survival over petty concerns. Establishing a chain of command before a crisis is non-negotiable. If you wait until the SHTF, it's already too late. Everyone needs to know their role and who's giving the orders. If someone refuses to follow, they're a liability that the group can't afford. Don't expect fairness. It doesn't matter when the alternative is death. A survival scenario weeds out the weak, and leadership separates those who make it from those who don't. Survival doesn't care about your feelings, so better find someone who will lead you through the storm without hesitation. 7. Resource allocation and tough decisions. When SHTF, the brutal reality is that fairness becomes irrelevant in the face of survival. Resource allocation isn't about being nice or playing fair. It's about cold, calculated decisions that maximize the survival of the group or the individual calling the shots. If supplies are limited, emotions and notions of equality must take a back seat to logic and practicality. It's an uncomfortable truth, but survival doesn't care about your feelings, and neither should you when the stakes are life and death. For example, in a scenario where food or medicine is in short supply, tough calls have to be made. Should you give limited antibiotics to a sick elderly person who may not pull through regardless? Or to a younger, healthier individual who has a higher chance of survival and can contribute to the group? These are real, moral dilemmas that will test your ability to focus on what matters most: endurance and self-preservation. Emotional attachments and the urge to distribute resources fairly could inadvertently doom everyone. Equality in these moments is a luxury nobody can afford. Your group's survival depends on prioritizing individuals who can contribute the most. It's a world where practicality outweighs kindness. The person who is strong enough to hunt, build, protect, or otherwise keep things running might justifiably receive more food or supplies compared to someone weaker or less capable. It may feel harsh, even cruel, but survival isn't about feelings. When resources are finite, every item matters, and waste or the wrong decision can mean death for yourself or others. Leadership in these situations requires a steel backbone. You can't afford to bend under emotional pressure or societal norms that no longer apply. Allocating resources unfairly but effectively keeps the group alive another day. Survival is not about equality. It's about who has the best chance of keeping everyone moving forward. If you can't make the hard decisions, someone else will, and you might not like the results. 8. Mental strength as a key survival asset. When everything falls apart and the world turns chaotic, mental strength becomes your most critical survival tool. Forget about fairness, comfort, or ideal scenarios. Survival doesn't care about your feelings or how unfair a situation is. It only demands that you adapt, act, and persist. Mental toughness is what separates those who endure from those who crumble. Your mindset can quite literally save your life. When SHTF, staying calm isn't just helpful, it's essential. Panic is a killer. It clouds your judgment and makes you vulnerable to bad decisions that could cost you dearly. Mental strength means forcing yourself to take a breath, assess the situation clearly, and prioritize actions. Yes, it's easier said than done, but survival doesn't allow room for excuses. If you can't control your emotions under pressure, you're already putting yourself and those relying on you at risk. Making hard decisions is another critical element of mental resilience. Survival situations don't come with neat, easy choices. You might have to ration food, leaving some people hungry. You might need to cut ties with someone who's putting your group in danger. You might even have to leave a vulnerable person behind to save the majority. These decisions will feel cold and cruel. But survival isn't about being kind. It's about making the decisions no one else wants to make. Perseverance is everything. Survival is often less about skill and more about sheer determination. Supplies can run out and plans can fail, but if you give up mentally, it's over. Mental resilience keeps you pushing forward when every instinct tells you to quit. It keeps you focused on the end goal, staying alive, when the odds seem insurmountable. The people who survive are almost never the strongest, fastest, or best equipped. They're the ones who refuse to stop, no matter how brutal or bleak things get. Forget your expensive gear or meticulous prepping if you haven't trained your mind. Mental strength is your most important asset when the world turns upside down. Work on building your resilience before you need it, because when SHTF, there's no room for weakness, just survival. Fine. Preparation for survival. When disaster strikes, wishful thinking won't save you. Preparation will. Surviving isn't about fairness, comfort, or what should have been. It's about making decisions that keep you and your loved ones alive. Preparation for survival starts with taking the reality of dire situations seriously. Stockpiling supplies isn't just a suggestion, it's mandatory. Food, water, medical kits, tools, and other essentials need to be accessible and ready at all times. If you're caught empty-handed when the world turns upside down, no one is going to hand you a lifeline out of pity. Harsh truth? Yes. Necessary truth? Absolutely. Skills matter more than supplies in the long run. Stockpiles run out. Knowledge doesn't. Learn how to hunt, forage, purify water, defend yourself, and administer basic medical care. Sitting around waiting for normalcy is how people lose. But those who know how to adapt, improvise, and think ahead are the ones who make it. Emotional and moral readiness is just as critical as your physical preparation. This isn't about playing hero, and it isn't about being liked. It's about doing what needs to be done. The choices you face won't always feel fair or easy, but survival isn't about feelings. It's about making decisions that ensure you see another day. Practice scenarios where you need to think under pressure. Panic is your enemy. Tough decisions will need to be made. Who to trust, when to move, how much to share. Hesitation kills. Start developing the mindset now that you won't always have the luxury of fairness. Yet you'll need to act decisively. Survival doesn't magically eliminate morality, but it does shift your priorities. Being prepared means knowing what kind of person you aim to be, no matter the circumstances. Calm under threat, adaptable when plans fall apart, and unshakable when forced to endure. Remember, preparation is not about paranoia. It's about responsibility. It's not someone else's job to save you. It's yours. Do the work now, because when SHTF, it will be too late for regret. 10. The harsh reality of survival. When it comes to survival, fairness is a lie we can no longer afford to uphold. The truth is simple yet brutal. When the chips are down, survival isn't fair, and it doesn't have to be. It's about staying alive, plain and simple. This means putting your emotional attachments and moral hesitations on the back burner, because they are liabilities that can cost you everything. When SHTF, there's no room for sentimentality. Hesitating to make tough calls or prioritizing what's right over what's necessary plays right into the hands of death. If resources are limited and someone in the group isn't carrying their weight, hard decisions must be made. Does it feel good? No. Is it necessary? Yes. Keep this in mind every time you're reluctant to act. Your hesitation could kill you or the people who depend on you. Trust becomes a fragile thing in such circumstances. You're better off assuming everyone, yes, even members of your group, will prioritize their own survival over yours. And why wouldn't they? This isn't some postgraduate ethics seminar. It's a situation where every decision can mean the difference between life and death. Those who hesitate, who cling to outdated notions of fairness, are the first to fall. Mercy is a luxury you can only afford when you're no longer in immediate danger. Sharing resources sounds noble in theory, but it can be your undoing. For example, if you have food or water for your immediate survival and someone you barely trust is eyeing your stash, you'd better ask yourself a simple question. Is their life worth jeopardizing your own? The answer, more often than not, is a resounding no. Fairness doesn't matter, not when survival is on the line. The harsh reality is that survival is a game of pragmatism, driven by instinct and strategy. It's about making decisions rooted in logic, not compassion. Survival is unattainable for those who expect it to be pretty, fair, or comfortable. The rules are simple, even if they're hard to swallow. Do what you need to do to stay alive, because no one else is going to save you.